What really makes a good Christmas special? I'm serious. What puts a Christmas special above all others and makes it so much more special? It's really hard to say, and I've covered a few specials around this time, but none really do get to that perfection. Adventure Times did get close, but what really left its impact was its huge lore drop that changed not only the trajectory of the plot, but what the entire show was. But its first part was seriously lacking, and while the second part had amazing jokes, it only really got properly Christmas-like at the very end in spirit and visuals, since it was about Finn and Jake essentially making a new Christmas 1,000 years later. Chowders was fun, like the rest of the show, super charming and full of jokes, but it lacked a lot of emotional impact that most Christmas specials had, with the biggest being Monk to swallow his pride for the first time in the show to make Chowder happy. That was actually pretty great. Ben 10's was freaking insane and like you're on drugs, but I'll give it credit, it was creative. I still have no idea what actually happened in it. Invader Zim's was just as disturbing and unsettling as the show itself, but it's really fun to see a show like Invader Zim try a Christmas special, leading to a lot of holiday horror visuals and an awesome Kaiju Santa battle. But of course Invader Zim isn't going to try and keep the holiday spirit. If anything, they're just going to make fun of it. Danny Phantoms was a lot of fun, and definitely the most action-packed out of all the Christmas specials I've covered, and every type of holiday fight you can think. But I love the twist that the villains don't fight at Christmas, and help Danny to save it, even if it's not exactly perfect in execution. But hey, that's nothing compared to My Life as a Teenage Robot, which I consider to be one of the worst animated Christmas episodes, where Jenny is tortured, violated, and abandoned by her friends for a crime she didn't commit, as everyone, even her friends and family, try to kill her without a second thought. It was so mean-spirited and harsh, and the resolution barely felt enough to make up for it. It makes it a sour and disturbing Christmas special. So, I've covered a fair share of them. All Nicktoons this year, huh? But I've yet to cover something that truly captures the spirit of the holiday, and I think it's about time I do. And I think that Spongebob's first Christmas special really is that. Now, everyone knows and loves this special, but I'm not sure it's the best Christmas special. It's very subjective. I've seen a lot of love for Hey Arnold's Christmas special, where it gets weirdly real, where instead of a usual plot, Arnold has to find the lost daughter of his neighbor for Christmas who got separated by the Vietnam War. What the hell? Yeah, it's really moving, mature, and emotional, and deserves its praise.
Leave now. That little football-headed kid will never believe in miracles again.
But it was before my time, so I don't think I'm the person to talk about it and give it justice. But I definitely grew up with this one, as so many others did, and to me, it's pretty much the definitive Christmas special, one that captures the season and feeling of it like no other. But I want to dive deeper. Why does it feel that way? Aside from just being Nick's most popular show, what makes it stand out and impact people, so memorable and heartfelt after all these years later? It's not the only SpongeBob Christmas special, so why is it up there? And does it deserve this status? Is it just nostalgia? Or maybe like Christmas, perhaps it means a little bit more. I want to get into it more, so let's do a deeper dive on SpongeBob's Christmas special. Now, I kind of feel it's a bit redundant to dedicate a big synopsis segment to this, since everyone remembers this special, but I still feel I should to point out some aspects I'll use in my overview and other aspects of my perspective. I think SpongeBob can be a lot more interesting than you think. A few months ago I covered the Pickles episode, and now it has a really good allegory and message about anxiety, and I really recommend you check it out. Also, just do my typical thing, you know. This episode is one of the few that actually has a unique opening, with a festive new set of instrumentals and vocals and a new title card.
It's the SpongeBob Christmas special.
I mean, it's not anything major, they didn't reanimate it, but it's still sweet to see. Love how they clarify it's not a SpongeBob Christmas special, but the SpongeBob Christmas special. I actually forgot, it doesn't open right away, but instead with a Patsy the Pirate segment. You know, I'm reminded on how much early SpongeBob also played with live action. It was actually pretty inventive for a Nicktoon back then, that kind of reinforced the absurdist comedy of the show. I gotta give Tom Kenny props for also portraying Patchy in live action, alongside voicing the main character. It was a great job. Even randomly appearing with Big Time Rush for some reason. I'm sure most kids at the time genuinely didn't even know they were played by the same guy. I do wonder how they did that peg leg prop though. Patchy introduces the idea of a SpongeBob Christmas in that everyone in Bikini Bottom gets ready for Christmas, even though ironically the main story is the exact opposite. And yeah, admittedly this part does take rather long, but there are a few clever gags, which is common for early SpongeBob. But then finally the framing device happens on how did Bikini Bottom celebrate their first Christmas, finally eventually taking us to the real title card, Christmas Who, which sounds more like a Doctor Who Christmas special name, but what do I know. This is a double-length episode, so the patchy segments were clearly just made to pad out the episode, but there's still a bit of fun and charming, especially with how obviously low budget they are. But it starts out with SpongeBob trying to karate Sandy in a sneak attack, showing that he really learned nothing from the last season. But she's too busy lighting up her tree like a Christmas tree, which SpongeBob panics and thinks is a fire. I wonder how he would know a fire if they're underwater. But even in the early seasons, there was already way too many impossible fires. Like really, what the hell is going on down there? Especially if it's confirmed somewhat that the real world is above. As Sandy says it's not on fire, it's just a Christmas tree, which SpongeBob has no idea what that is. In his defense, that does not look like a Christmas tree. And so Sandy explains all about Christmas in pantomime, and I seriously wonder what the hell she's referring to, as SpongeBob is completely infatuated with the idea of it. I do love how this is how Bikini Bottom learns about Christmas, because it does make sense that they learn it from a land animal and spread it to them. But then again, how would they not know what Christmas is, but know about Halloween? Or even who the hell Leif Erikson is? Pedantic. But one thing against this episode is from this point of the story, Sandy is just gone with no explanation.
No, you're not in this episode.
And it kinda doesn't make any sense because she's the one who knows the most about Christmas and probably would make sure that everyone's getting it right, but she just vanished from this episode after. I guess it would be a bit harder for the story to play out, but I would at least like an explanation, like maybe she went to her family for the holidays. Even if it kind of ruins the Texas episode, I guess. Now, it's up in the air on how much Sandy explained Christmas to him, as we soon see him also tell the guys of the Krusty Krab rather excitedly. Though the place is weirdly closed. I know SpongeBob never had the best continuity, but it does beg the question on why. We know the restaurant is closed on Sundays, so I guess it's one of those days. I also wonder, how does SpongeBob consistently go to boating school when he has work every other day of the week? I mean, I guess it could be like Sunday school. You know what, this is too much of a rabbit hole, moving on. I love how all the characters have different reactions to it. SpongeBob of course is entranced by the holiday wonder, kind of being like Jack Skellington in this case, weird parallel. Squidward just thinks the entire thing is ridiculous, Patch is going for the vibes, and Mr. Krabs just into it to get free stuff. Those have some good writing letters gags though. Hey wait, how do you have paper if you're underwater? Also, the part where SpongeBob looks up to address Santa and Patrick is trying to find out what he's looking at is hilarious. As in order to send to Santa, someone makes the machine to rocket them to the surface? Okay, how the hell did he make that? SpongeBob isn't the techie type. Maybe Sandy helped off screen? But her intervention would cause a lot of problems in how SpongeBob interprets Christmas. It also seems that off-screen, SpongeBob had to spread the word to the entire town about Christmas, which seems kind of weird to just talk about it with 3 people, but I guess word really gets around Bikini Bottom, especially with the promises of gifts. Though it doesn't seem like SpongeBob was ever told about the naughty or nice concept, which is really important, and also makes like 99% of the people here unable to get presents. But yeah, virtually the entire town gets together to send their letters to Santa, hilariously by making messages in a bottle and sending them to the surface. Again, with the fact that the real world also coexists here, I would love to see a normal person's reaction to seeing this. However, Squidward really breaks through just to rant at SpongeBob that he can't believe the entire town is buying into his inane Christmas vision. It does kind of make you wonder why Squidward is even bothering this much, like why does he care? But this is coming from a perspective of someone who doesn't even know what Christmas is, and is just told all the traditions and belief in an immortal toy maker. For someone like Squidward who holds himself up so much as an artistic intellectual, he doesn't get it and thinks it's all ridiculous, and then everyone just buys it instantly upsets him.
Stop naming moves after me.
Everybody's an idiot except for me.
Well, it's true.
Especially that it's from SpongeBob, who we already can't stand. It does seem a little weird, but I've been on the internet and dealt with a lot of stupid takes that got a lot of following, so I can't say like I haven't been there. Luckily, SpongeBob doesn't let him bother him as he walks off in a huff.
Gee, Squidward, maybe Santa will bring me a dictionary so I can understand what you just said.
as it then begins probably the most iconic part of the special, where SpongeBob tries to get everything ready for Christmas, the song, The Very First Christmas. And yeah, what can I say? It's freaking iconic. The beginning just feels wrong now without seeing Mr. Krabs getting horrifically murdered. But yeah, it's so good, it's so catchy and memorable.
Things are as good as they seem to be. A star on top will complete all the scenery.
It's actually pretty unorthodox as a Christmas song. The instrumentation doesn't really feel like it's a Christmas song, but it really works well. And of course, it really does capture that feeling of getting ready for Christmas and being excited for it, just like the inhabitants of Bikini Bottom are. Again, I don't know how many popular Christmas songs deal with the anticipation of Christmas. It's just usually, hey, it's Christmas, it's awesome, everyone loves it, and then, hey man, Christmas is coming, we gotta get everything ready. It's a really relatable and nice feeling, especially when you're a kid so you relate to it. Seriously, instant Christmas classic. Like, I love the two getting so into Christmas that they don't care if they get trash thrown on them, or a small moment where Plankton and Krabs get along just for the holiday. Plankton also throws out fruitcake into a trash can filled with it, which is gonna be contradictory in the next Christmas special. They also decorate Squidward's house, which of course they hate and demand they put it down. It kinda bothers me how it sounds like they just completely ignore him after. But yeah, with the tree up and all the town joining in and singing, yeah, it feels like Christmas. I love this moment, it's so pleasing. However, as the song ends, SpongeBob's reminded that Squidward never made a letter and rushes to his house before the night ends. Also, I love this. Classic SpongeBob really did have such great small jokes that rush by you. It's another reason why it works so well. But since Squidward doesn't even believe in Santa, he doesn't care and want him to leave. Even telling the entire town to give it up and stop buying SpongeBob's BS. Again, where's Sandy in all of this? She could probably vouch for him. Though, does Sandy actually believe in Santa, or is she just celebrating for the sake of it? The episode never makes it clear. But as Squidward's trying to sleep, everyone else is excited with a chant that I know for a fact every kid did at Christmas Eve.
Santa's coming tonight, tonight. Santa's coming tonight.
But they really do wait all night for it, for the morning to come, and yet, no Santa. The townsfolk are pretty miffed that Christmas never really happened and blame SpongeBob for lying to them. There's the asshole Bikini Bottomites I know and loathe. Even Patrick eventually loses all his optimism and dishes SpongeBob. And yeah, they really drive in the depression angle. It actually really reminds me of how children are once they find out Santa's not real. It's almost like it's represented on screen in different context. I wonder if that aspect makes it relatable. And if it can't get any worse, Squidward comes out to rub it in that he was right and everyone was wrong. Especially taking on SpongeBob, humiliating him and turning him into Pomni. So Squidward's being a massive... well, yeah. Very Tom and Jerry, surprised they got away with it. This might be the most mean and jerkish Squidward has ever been to SpongeBob completely unprompted, especially when it only comes from him thinking that he's dumb for believing in something, and not even directly annoying him aside from decorating his house, I guess. But even though SpongeBob admits he was right, he still made him a present, which stopped Squidward, as he says that he didn't want Squidward to be left out when Santa was supposed to bring everyone everything. Man, I love that he did this. This is the characterization I felt SpongeBob was like in its later seasons. SpongeBob is a massive child at heart, but for a lot of the time the modern eras forget that he's super good-natured as well and practically a saint. Of course, he can snap at any moment, but he's always kind, forgiving, and friendly to everyone. Except for Bubble Bass. Weird how he's nice to Plankton more than him. I feel that a lot of the later seasons, at least I grew up with, interpret him as being some massive hyper-emotional man-baby, crying constantly and being super oblivious and irritating. But I like how he's rounded out a lot more in the earlier seasons, where it's balanced much more and shows he can be pushed beyond it, but still keeps his spirit. Like, everyone remembers how he snapped in this scene, but don't forget, he easily could have just kicked Squidward out of his house to be done with it. But instead forced Mr. Krabs to give him his job back to actually help him despite that. And this is that same energy. Despite everything Squidward did to him, he just genuinely wanted to enjoy Christmas, even going out of his way to get him a gift, even if it ended up being the only gift that was given. Even Squidward's surprised and moved by the gesture. He's at first dismissive thinking it's some corny hand-me-down, only to find it's an exquisitely hand-carved clarinet made just for him. He is completely moved, saying it's the best gift he's ever gotten, and he feels like, yeah, a jackass for treating SpongeBob the way he did. Another thing I note is that I feel later seasons would have done what Squidward thought and played off as a joke that SpongeBob did just give him something thoughtless. But the fact that despite SpongeBob seeming so oblivious and childlike, that he fundamentally knew what Squidward wanted and would appreciate and went out of his way to make it for him is a really great reveal. Cause you would be like Squidward. You wouldn't think SpongeBob would care or know about what would make Squidward happy, but he did it immediately. And he wants to apologize and see SpongeBob so incredibly downbeat and depressed, pitying him and realizing, despite what he thought, all he did was just to try and make people happy, even if it didn't turn out like he'd want. So to cheer him up, he somehow dresses like Santa. Like seriously, how did he get that outfit done that quick? Did he like Grinch it up in a few minutes? But SpongeBob instantly buys that Squidward is the real Santa despite everything. But I do love how Squidward's just barely keeping it together.
Oh, who is it?
Up here, you dunce! I mean, Merry Christmas, little boy. Don't do that again.
But honestly, it is pretty adorable.
I didn't bring Christmas to Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob. You did.
I did?
And Squidward satisfied to cheer SpongeBob up. But everyone else notices, and he can't break the illusion in front of SpongeBob, and gets into, you guessed it, antics. So Squidward has to give this girl a gift from his own house to make her happy, which Squidward even acknowledges that it almost felt good to give. Until everyone in Bikini Bottom also wants the gifts they asked for, and Squidward gives away his other belongings with a few good jokes.
Here you go, Patrick.
Whoa! A wristwatch!
But yeah, he sells virtually everything he owns, as he's dejected on why he did it. Just for SpongeBob to go in super excited that Santa was real and gave everyone gifts, but Squidward of course doesn't want to hear it. Only to get a message to him from none other than freaking Santa himself, thanking him for his help this year and that he's been a good boy. Well, that's kind of debatable. As Squidward's the only one to see the real Santa fly by and then does weird things that remind me a lot of nostalgia critic Santa Christ. And with the appropriate reaction.
Yep, I'm insane.
Then getting back to Patty's segments, and Patty gives him a Yoshi egg for Christmas, I guess. You know, there's something about seeing a grown man overact with a badly dubbed parrot puppet swinging around that really puts you in the festive mood. And so ends SpongeBob's first Christmas special. And it's really weird because on paper, it doesn't seem like it should be as memorable and impactful as it is. It's a pretty unorthodox special, and it's very low-key. Like, there's so many Santas in Trouble stories out there of saving Christmas from the show's villains, but this surprisingly isn't one of them. There's not really a lot of direct stakes or huge emotional impacts, and yet it does it so well. Maybe that's one of the reasons it works so well, because it handles its Christmas in a much more realistic way. Like, every kid has been in this position, hearing about Christmas and getting excited for Santa to come, filled with such wonder and hope like no other, exemplified by the wonder of childhood. It's why I feel the very first Christmas works so well, because it does perfectly capture that excitable spirit. This Christmas feels like the very first Christmas indeed. Arguably, SpongeBob captures that same excitable spirit that children watching have. And I also feel Squidward captures the opposite. The jaded adult who doesn't care about Christmas and thinks it's stupid and ridiculous, who gets upset seeing someone else and not get their perspective, and still has that whimsy and joy.
What have you got to lose?
My self-respect, my sanity, my lunch.
It's arguable that this is the whole point of their characters. As Lemon said in his video, SpongeBob is the embodiment of adulthood through a child's eye, and Squidward represents a jaded adult living through adulthood. And it's no surprise that it makes the most interesting dynamic in the show because of that. And even despite their differences, when they help the other out, it makes the biggest impact, it makes the biggest emotional and most memorable moments in the series. And this is really no different, as despite everything, SpongeBob wants to make sure that Squidward is happy and experiences the joy of Christmas when he's too egotistical to fall for something that he thinks is stupid. But eventually, he is proven right. As SpongeBob is devastated that despite what he'd hoped, Santa isn't real and his Christmas was ruined. It's arguably a growing up factor that a lot of kids experience and feel as well, to get the joy and whimsy of your life crushed by reality, and everyone has to go through it. And especially for someone like SpongeBob, it's truly crushing. And of course, Squidward, being the jaded guy he is, laughs, making fun of him for being childish and not being jaded like him. It's a true fact of life that people are like this, thinking that you're stupid for being optimistic and also not down to the crushing realities of life.
Write a letter.
SpongeBob, grow up, will ya? No one's gonna give me a gift just because I write them a stupid letter.
And yet, despite everything, he made Squidward a gift just so that he would be happy when he believed everyone else would get their gifts. Though, I question how SpongeBob was able to make it, since he seemed to only work on it when Squidward told him that he didn't want to write a letter. I mean, he would have only one night to carve this super well-made clarinet, when he and the others seemed to sing all through it, so it's kind of a plot hole. But it doesn't matter, as SpongeBob really did turn the other cheek just to save who he considered one of his friends from being left out of Christmas. And it was really here that above all else, SpongeBob truly did capture the spirit of Christmas. Past just the hopes of gifts and merriment, but actually going out of his way to make something to make someone else happy. In a legitimate way, as I said before, as I feel later seasons would have just been something that he liked and would be all just, at least he tried. But no, he really did know what to give Squidward to be his perfect gift. And it really changed Squidward that he regret how he treated him because he gave him such a beautiful gift and realized how awful he was being to him. And even he acknowledged that SpongeBob wasn't doing anything wrong. Sure, it was silly, but he just wanted to make people happy. He gave them hope, happiness, and brought them all together that night. From his perspective, it might have been ridiculous, but did it really matter? And to make up for it, he decided to make SpongeBob's wish come true and act like Santa. It's weird because this turn almost comes as a surprise. It's not like Squidward was the focus of the episode, or even as an active antagonist. Sure, he was a jerk about it, and thought that Christmas was stupid and everyone wanted to celebrate it, but it's not like he tried to ruin it or destroy it. He mostly just wanted to be left alone. It's honestly not that different from his usual role in most episodes, just being a downer to the wacky situation. So it's a surprise to see the story turn to be about him, and practically a redemption arc that wasn't even the focus. And it's not only just to make SpongeBob happy, but there's genuine parts of Squidward who realize SpongeBob's efforts and goodwill and wants to give appreciation after finally receiving it firsthand.
I didn't bring Christmas to Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob. You did.
And even if he was essentially forced to keep up the ruse, Squidward did acknowledge that giving did feel good. One of the few times Squidward actually did get joy from treating someone nicely. And ironically, helps to become the town's first Santa. And I do appreciate how the townsfolk are happy with just getting a gift, even if it's not what they wanted. Like, they could have been really selfish, and they definitely would have been in later seasons, but they're just happy to be given anything really, and helps the Christmas mood. And it really did work, as despite losing so much, Squidward did give SpongeBob his joy and happiness back. And his efforts weren't ignored, as he's the only one the real Santa showed himself to. I've always wondered why Santa appeared after Christmas when he could have saved this whole thing. It could just be that this was too sudden and he couldn't go to Bikini Bottom on time. They only just now knew of him. But I like to believe it's because practically the whole town stayed up all night waiting for Santa, and as we all know, he knows when you're sleeping and when you're awake, so they never could come in that case. If that's intentional, I like how they explained it. But that doesn't matter, as ironically the person who was against it the most was the one who saved Christmas and became their Santa and brought joy to all, just getting a sincere thanks from Claus themselves and proving he was real all along. And even though Squidward lost a lot, he was still given his credit and still got to keep his gift. It's interesting to compare this Christmas special to the next one they make in Season 8, It's a SpongeBob Christmas, which told a much more conventional story. The biggest draw though was its stop motion style, trying to replicate old Rankin Bass specials, which is really cool to see, and I like it when the show experiments with its visuals. It also does prove that Santa does come to Bikini Bottom now, so I guess that was just a one-time thing. But Plankton kept being on the naughty list, and then decided to make everyone else into jerks so that he looked good in comparison. Don't think you need to work too hard on that, Sheldon. Two Nick Sheldons into robot girls, weird. Using a random element, jerktonium, almost as stupid as unobtainium, to do it by putting it in fruitcake. But Spongebob's immune to it, and his Christmas spirit is so great that it repels the effects, but is tricked to giving it to the entire town and somewhat turning them into bigger jerks. But to deal with SpongeBob's immunity potentially ruining his plan, he makes a SpongeBob robot to impersonate him and ruin his reputation by destroying the holiday. You never learn, do you? But Sandy also helps somehow by finding a way to reverse the jerktonium, which is a song. Also love how Tom said it.
That's no formula, that's a song.
Leading to the big music number, Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas. A song that did exist before this special, and likely had this whole thing written around it. But it's pretty good, even if it's no very first Christmas.
It's the time for family and holly and turkey. 'Tis the season to be jolly, not jerky. Jolly, not jerky.
But even though the entire town is cured, Santa comes. Well, weird troll Santa, what is this design? Seriously, it looks so ugly. Only to say he's here for Plankton's gift since everyone has been a complete jerk giving him the gift of the Krabby Patty formula. Actually, a pretty good way to do it, not gonna lie. Until the Robo Spongebob comes back after Santa, and SpongeBob has to face him and recreates battle for Bikini Bottom. And someone defeats it with the fruitcake. And Plankton's print is ruined by the fraud and Christmas is saved. Also, Puppet Patchy really freaks me out. And yeah, it's not a bad Christmas special, it's pretty fun and enjoyable. And there have been other Christmas specials after, even done by the same team in stop motion. Recently featuring Sandy's family from a new movie that everyone loved. But it's evident that it doesn't reach what the original special does, even if this one has a more exciting story and visuals. But Christmas 2 captures the spirit like no other. In a weird way, its grounded story makes the conflict work so much better, becoming more relatable and real. It's very simple, and everything else makes it work. I feel classic SpongeBob did an amazing job getting all the potential out of relatively simple conflicts and setting the bar while doing it. I mean, you wouldn't think that an episode about Squidward making a marching band would be the greatest and most funniest episode, but it is. And this episode is evident of that. It brings the seasons to life in such a way and tells an unorthodox but relatable story. We've all been there, getting excited for Christmas, and the possibilities, the wonders of the holiday, and the visit from Santa. And yet, you gotta grow up eventually. You turn from a SpongeBob to a Squidward, jaded by life and struggle to see miracles. But that misses the point of the season. It's when people come together and be the best they can be, to give to others to show their appreciation and to be happy and together. And SpongeBob showed Squidward this through his thoughtful gift to him, showing him the true goodwill inside of him and the season itself. And one act of goodwill inspires another and changes Squidward's perspective, turning from a massive jerk priding himself on being right to trying to make SpongeBob happy and understanding why he bothered with all this in the first place. It's a redemption and change of heart that really means something. And this type of development and growth is what makes Christmas, reaffirming that people can change for the better, and this is truly a special time. It's kind of amazing this exists. When life can be so hard, there's a time when people really are encouraged to be so much kinder, nicer, charitable, and friendlier, and be better. This season really is magical. Everyone loves a redemption story. It reminds people that we can move past our vices. It's part of the reason why I think A Christmas Carol is a perfect story that can be retold and remade constantly, because its themes and messages of redemption will always be timeless and relevant, and establishes that this is the time of the year to be better, to love your enemies, to show your love and appreciation. And that heart is really what makes this episode shine, so much more than other specials out there. And that's why I feel it's such a Christmas classic, an unforgettable one at that.
Night and happy holidays.
And yeah, this Christmas, I think it's important to remember what Christmas means, and the message of goodwill to everyone. It's the spirit of the season, we should all keep it. And from me to you, have a Merry Christmas, and see you next time.
Hey, you're...